This is the Sixth Man Show, an Orlando Magic podcast, with your hosts, Kevin Tucker and Jonathan Osborne, covering all things Magic basketball. By fans, for fans. Go Magic. What's going on, Orlando Magic fans? You guys are back with the Sixth Man Show. Today is September 26, 2024. Jonathan Osborne here. No Kevin Tucker today. He is home from the hospital recovering from his open heart surgery. But I'm joined by a very special guest, a good friend of ours from the Numbers on the Board podcast and the ESPN show, my boy Pierre, PeeWeeDaPlug. P, how are you, my friend? Thanks for stopping by. How have you been?
And I'm good, man. First and foremost, we got to shout out Kevin. Hope he's doing well. Blessings that he was able to have a successful heart surgery. So that's really, really good news. But other than that, man, I'm chilling. We've gotten to that point of the year out here in Chicago where it's not cold yet, but it's definitely cooling down. So this is one of my favorite times of the year where it's right in between hot, because we had some very hot days. We had some Orlando type weather in the summer that kind of caught me off guard. And then we know once the winter comes, it's going to be significantly cold. Right now, it's the perfect blend where you can wear a hoodie and shorts. You know what I mean? Like, to me, that's the perfect weather where you can kind of just mix it up a little bit. So I'm trying to enjoy this little fall weather. The leaves are touching the ground, colorful on the sidewalks and things like that. I'm just enjoying life.
We have about a month until we hit that period here in Florida. We're still dealing with hurricanes as you and I record this. The West Coast and the panhandle of the state here getting ready to get hit with a hurricane. But in a few weeks, we'll get to that point. I mean, you could really wear whatever you want here almost year round. But we have a couple of weeks where you can throw on a hoodie and, maybe some sweatpants and chill a little bit here. But P, the last time that I had the pleasure of, having you on the show, some things have changed. The pod name has changed. You all are now on ESPN. What's it been like, for you guys, leaving Bleacher Report now with being ESPN and Omaha and everything like that? How's that been for you guys?
Well, first and foremost, it's been a dream. Like, I don't even want to say a dream come true because I don't know how many people legitimately dream of being on ESPN. I feel like we all have wanted that in our life growing up watching ESPN, but I don't think anybody, it almost seemed too far-fetched, kind of like making the NBA for some of these players, I'm sure. So to actually be on ESPN and be able to watch yourself on ESPN is kind of still surreal. I don't think it's anything that I'll ever get used to or will get used to. But it's been a great transition. I think it's been a huge upgrade for us in a lot of different aspects. We have a wonderful team with ESPN and Omaha. To be able to have such a prestigious company, have that support for you and give you that stamp of approval, it just means a lot. And it goes a long way. It's a huge cosign. It's one of the biggest cosigns you can get in the land of work that we do. And, to just be able to carry that says a lot and it means a lot, but it's been a hell of a first year and I'm looking forward to year two and to continue to build with them and make something special. I think a lot of people who are in the podcast space, basketball podcast space, I think they look at us because we were one of the early ones going on. And I think we've shown that you can take it way further than anybody ever led us to believe. You know what I mean? When we first was breaking through the podcast landscape, all of the people that were on the high level of podcasts, and they were already with the ESPNs of the world. You know what I mean? They were already working with the company. But to be able to be an example of starting something from nothing, like in the living room, in the basement, and turning it into what we've turned it into, and to now be a ESPN in Omaha backed by Peyton Manning, you know what I mean? Like one of the GOATs that we all grew up watching. It's just, it's surreal. The perfect word is surreal because that's exactly what it is.
I can't express, how, obviously you and I have become friendly over the course of the last few years, and Mike and Derek and KB, who I really can't believe he cut his hair. That was pretty crazy to see.
I can't believe it either.
he looks good, but just so proud of you guys. But when you all decided to make that transition from Bleacher Report to ESPN, did you guys go into that knowing that Through the Wire wasn't going to be able to go with you? At what point in the process did you realize that? And then what went into the thought process going with Numbers on the Board?
Yeah. So when we were getting ready to make the move, it was kind of apparent that we weren't going to be able to name. So we were prepared, just because it gets really tricky with that. It's so many moving pieces that it's very hard to have to move that from one company all the way to another, and all of the things that you move along with it when you have a YouTube channel, the Apple Podcast, Spotify, all of these different things have to transfer over. It just gets very, very technical. And so once we kind of opened up the idea of ever going anywhere, that was a part of the thought process, of like, you're probably gonna have to change the name. And at first, we was kind of like, man, you know what I mean? It was kind of like, but then I think it was a great moment of us like empowering ourselves, because like we we know that we have people that root for us and we're supported, and we kind of understand how big we are, but at the same time all of us are so humble that we don't really, despite what we may showcase on the podcast, nobody really acts like the way we act on the podcast. You know what I mean? Like, we're comfortable with each other in that format. So yeah, you'll see me yell at D Mills or Mike, or go back and forth with KB. But like, in real life, if me and you are at a bar or out or something, you're probably not going to get that same person, because you know what I mean. It's just a different scenario. But we're all extremely humble, and it was a moment where we had to kind of like let ourselves know, like, yo, we don't really need the name. The name doesn't make us, we make the name. So theoretically, we are so good at what we do. We're so great at what we do. We can put a bunch of names in a hat and really pick any hat if we want to. And I think that was one of those rare moments where we needed to kind of pump ourselves up and remind ourselves of who we were, and to not be afraid of, quote unquote, starting over. So that was a wonderful moment for me, because again, that's just not who we are as a group. On a regular basis, we're kind of humble guys, stay to ourselves. We kind of encourage everybody else in the community of podcasting landscape. We do as many appearances as we can. We try to support everybody as much as we can. We never try to have the we're bigger than anybody. But in that moment, we needed to kind of pump ourselves up a bit.
Every time sometimes you do got to remind yourself, hey, like, we are capable of doing this. And that's what I was going to say, is that you all made the name, not the other way around. Next thing I want to talk about, one of my favorite tweets of all time that you use the quote quite often. D Book had a quote, I think it was like back in like 2019 or 2018, where he said, you can't talk basketball with everybody. And you all doing what you do in the platform that you have, obviously you're going to have some trolls. You're going to have some people that disagree with you on social media just for the sake of getting your attention and having that interaction with you. But what do you mean when you say that you can't talk basketball with everybody?
First and foremost, I love the tweet from Devin Booker. I actually used to sell hoodies with that tweet on it. But I guess Twitter technically owns everybody's tweets. So once the hoodies got popular, they snatched it away, because at first I was selling them, I was doing real well, but it was on a smaller level. But then it started to go somewhere, and I added different colors, and Twitter got on it. So
you got that C&D.
Yeah, very, very quickly. And it was so random. I was not expecting it at all. They let me go for like a year and a half. I was like, okay. And then year 2, they like, nah. But the first thing I'll say, as much as I love the tweet, I hate having to say it, because I'm such a basketball head and such a basketball like junkie that I want to talk basketball with everybody. Like, that's my goal. Like, I don't have to reply to as many people as I do on Twitter. I don't have to engage as much as I do. The early years of our podcast, they used to call me the king of fan interaction, because I used to talk to any and everybody, because like, I love basketball that much. And I think it's a game and a sport where we all can have different opinions. It doesn't always have to be so argumentative and I'm right, you're wrong. And that's the beauty of it. But in today's Twitter world, you can't say anything. There is no capability of having an open mind or creativity, or there's no way to think freely. And when I see certain people who are just so closed-minded and short-minded and so immature or biased, that's kind of when I bring out the can't talk basketball with everybody, because I think people who love basketball as much as I do, and who use it as a life source. You can't talk basketball with people who use it for, just a casual thing. Like, basketball is my life. So it means the world to me. And when I see people using it as a tool to get hate off, or to just do negative stuff, it's like, yeah, you can't talk basketball to everybody. We do it for two different reasons. You do it because it's a popular thing. I do it because I can't breathe without it. I was doing everything that I'm doing on a podcast where I make my living for now. For the first 15 to 20 years of my life, I did it for free. You know what I mean? Like, that's what both of my parents tell me that all the time. Like, yo, keep doing it, of course, but like, we're so proud of you because we've seen you do this your whole life for free. So we're so happy to see that you're able to now have a career off of it, because you kind of paid it forward to yourself. You know what I mean? You put in that sweat equity. So that's really what I mean. But like, behind every single time I use that, it's kind of like, this is kind of disappointing, because I wish there was a world where we could just go on here and I could just talk to a bunch of different minds about different basketball things, and we can just have discourse where we show different perspectives. And even though we may disagree, we don't have to argue or like come to blows about it. Basketball these days is so, the discourse is so short-minded, and it's so such a contradiction on what basketball is, because we'll talk about like the 7 seconds or less Suns, right? And that philosophy Mike D'Antoni had, but then we'll talk about the 03-04 Detroit Pistons, who were defensive. It's like two great teams, and like it's such different variations, but it shows what basketball is, able to be. You are a fan of the Orlando Magic. Y'all are gritty, tough, get it out the mud. And then you'll have a team, you know what I mean, that's super high scoring, like the Pacers. Two polar opposites. We can enjoy both. You don't have to be wrong for liking that team, and I don't have to be wrong for liking mine. And we could just both have this conversation with these different perspectives and kind of just go there. But people rather just be immature. And if you disagree, now you're a bunch of this, you're a bunch of that. And then once it gets personal, if I get personal, I'm the bad guy because I got the platform. So I can't win. It's a lose-lose.
Sometimes though, you do have to be a little bit petty. I've been in situations where you're having a Twitter interaction and people just get disrespectful, and they might think because you have a much bigger platform than I do, but sometimes it's like, bro, you would not say this to me in person. I'm not going to just let you get away with saying whatever you want on Twitter. Sometimes you got to hit them with a quote tweet, because then the other people will point fingers at them and let them know that they're acting, like an idiot. But I think part of it is like, not only can you not talk basketball with everybody, you can't talk with everybody. Like, not everybody is willing to have a civil conversation about anything that you might necessarily, disagree with. The standpoint where you're coming from, where you're so passionate about it, and once you can sense that the person that is trying to engage with you in conversation isn't as passionate, it is a little bit of a letdown. Like, I'll talk to Orlando, Magic fans all day, every day. I love talking Orlando Magic basketball. I eat, sleep, and breathe it. But when someone starts having a conversation with you and then you just immediately know they're a casual, it does kind of take you out of it. You're like, I was really excited to have this conversation, but it's you can't talk basketball with everybody. That's just really the facts of it. And I don't mean to sound cocky or anything like that, but you can apply that to anything in life. If you're really passionate about anything and you live and breathe it, and somebody draws that excitement out of you, but then you can see that they're not really matching that energy, it kind of takes life out of you in a certain aspect. But P, I want to pivot a little bit here, talk some Orlando Magic basketball. Now, some listeners of the show are going to hear me ask you questions that we've probably talked about 57 times so far this offseason. But what I love about having you on the show is, obviously you're tuned in, you're tapped in, you know exactly what's going on, but you still have an outside, unbiased perspective, and that's why I think this is really going to be valuable. But just start by asking you, like, what were your thoughts on the Orlando Magic and overachieving last season? Obviously, they start really hot out of the gate, top 2 or 3 seed in the East over the first couple of months of the season. Cool off a little bit in December and January after the All-Star break, when the schedule lightened up a little bit. Last couple of weeks of the season, they still had a chance at the 2 seed. Fall a little bit, late season losses to Charlotte and Houston, where they could have clinched home court advantage, but they get it done the last game of the season, take on the Cavs in the first round. What were your thoughts just generally about the Magic last season?
Yeah, so I was thoroughly impressed. I knew the Magic were going to be a solid team. Like that's what I came in there with my thinking into the last season. Where I was obviously following you guys, it brings me into the Magic world a little bit, so I can see what Magic fans are thinking. And then obviously with our platform, we have such a wide variety of different fan bases who support us. A lot of the Magic talk was kind of like crazy. And I was kind of like, not in a way where, and that's the thing again, where we talk about can't talk basketball with everybody, can't talk with everybody. When I give my opinions and my takes and what I believe, it's never to like down somebody. I gain nothing from trashing a team, or it's just what my assessment is. I'm a analyst. I give my analysis on what I see from each team or what I project. And I didn't project the Magic to be as good. You know what I mean? They exceeded what my expectation was, and I would see some chatter. Some Magic fans went a little way too overboard. Where I had to. That's where it really got, because it's like, yo, y'all definitely won't have home court advantage in the playoffs. Let's relax. But I definitely thought they were going to
One
be
game
playing
away. I mean, we came close.
for
We came
sure,
close.
for sure. And to see everything kind of play out, I was thoroughly impressed because number one, you guys were super good defensively. It was so good to see Jonathan Isaac be healthy. It was so good to see Paolo Banchero take the step he took as a year two player, because a lot of times when a guy has a rookie season like he did, you almost have to kind of brace yourself. And I think that was the thing for me, is where I was confident in him and I wanted him to have the sophomore season, but seeing how sometimes it is where teams are now familiar with who you are, the scouting report is going to be a little bit more thorough than your rookie year. You're going to get a little bit more attention. We know that the Magic weren't going to have the snipers, and they shot a little worse than I think we projected. It was still amazing to see that from him, because you don't see that big of a jump in the year twos from guys of his prototype. And even for you guys to have the success y'all had with Franz not having, the greatest shooting season, he still had an amazing year, in my opinion. I just ranked him 5th on my small forwards of last year. And a lot of people was like, well, he shot the peak at him 5. He shot the ball so bad. And again, it's like, no season is wrapped up into how a player shoots. You know what I mean? If that speaks values on him, if he can still be in consideration for the 5th spot coming off of a shooting year as bad as that was, imagine if he gets, league average, then we got to talk about a discussion. But the defense, the playmaking, the finishing, to shoot the ball as poor as he did, but still shoot almost around 50% from the field, says so much. And I don't think a lot of people take into consideration how much responsibility and workload is on the shoulders of him and Paolo for the ages and experience they are. A lot of these teams, they have somebody else that they can give some type of responsibility to. And, Suggs, we're going to see what happens this year. Last year, he was not as much of like, a legitimate head of the snake point guard. And I think because of that, Paolo and Franz had a lot of responsibility that people don't really talk about enough. You know what I mean? Let's put context into everything. So I was impressed, to say the least. Then you go into the playoffs and you go 7 games and you're a half away from going to the second round. And because of the injuries, and we saw where the Pacers are able to go, no telling what y'all do to go, to go even further. So I was super impressed. The only thing that I will say is the Magic, the Pacers, there are 2 teams that kind of worry me in this aspect. Because they had such a good year last year, I'm afraid that if they don't have the same exact year, they're going to be like disappointments. And I just don't think that that's fair, because this team is still fairly young. And I think the Eastern Conference got so much better. And I to them, it's a little lesser degree. But for the Pacers, I really feel that way, because they got to the conference finals. I'll be honest with you. There's no way in hell I think that they go back to the conference finals, but people are going to have that expectation. And I just don't think that that's fair. So both of you guys' teams, I kind of hope that, like, I'm hoping that the Magic, have a better year, but we got to brace ourselves. And if they don't, I just don't want the conversation to be, oh man, because we already kind of seeing the conversation with Paolo and Franz, and I'm just not a fan of it.
I'm glad that you brought up that point, because that's been a recurring theme on our show this offseason, is that just because if we get to the end of next season and on paper, it doesn't seem like it's a successful season in terms of exceeding the win total and going further in the playoffs, that doesn't mean the year is a failure. You look for no better example of this other than the Boston Celtics, right? Eastern Conference Finals back in, what was that, 2017, 2018, falter, missed the playoffs one year, and now they're all the way back. They made it all the way. I mean, they make the finals, they lose in the finals, and they make it all the way to the finals, and they're able to win the entire thing. How important for you is it for a fan base? Like, at the end of the day, who really cares? What matters is the front office's perspective and them sort of sticking to their plan and their roadmap for a team. How important do you think that is to keep the proper perspective that even if a single season doesn't go the way that you had hoped, as long as you can still see a clear path forward, you don't just blow it up and do whatever fans want teams to do these days?
No, I think that's super important. I think that's what the last few teams that we've seen win championships, I think that's what they've done. Like, you talked about the Celtics. There was times like we were having conversations about the Nuggets where it was like, man, the Nuggets are good every year. They're always good in the regular season, but there was a hump that they just couldn't get over. Before them, the Bucks, Giannis and the Bucks kept having really good regular seasons, and people like, oh man, he's going to leave, or they got to do this, they got to do that. But it's like, it's all about, once you get over the hump once, everything goes out of the window. So it's like, I never understand the panic, because it's like, who says you only get one attempt to get over the hump? Like, why fans are so like panicky? And it's like, that's not always the case. Very few times have we seen teams come together and just do it that first full year. You would have to be like a team that won, 73 games and added Kevin Durant to do that. Normally the rest of us have to really properly build a team. Like Orlando, y'all went and y'all had the year where you guys traded Vucevic, and then you got the Bulls pick, and then you were able to get Suggs and Franz, and then you got Paolo. And when you have that, you got to let it kind of marinate. Everything is such in a rush. Paolo is not even on a second-year contract yet. So why would I not take advantage of that? Why I'm trying to build gradually so that we can have something special really develop. And when you look at the roster and you look at everything that the Magic have, I don't know when it's going to happen, but there is something that is going to happen, because I'm just pointing these things out. It's going to be a Magic fan that watch this, and they might not like hearing me say this because they love this player or these players. Anthony Black. Where's my other guy at from Michigan? Jet Howard. I don't really see room for them to really blossom into the real players that they are if Jalen Suggs has the year that Magic fans want to have. You can't have both. You know what I mean? You got to remind fan bases that we can't have a career year from Jalen Suggs and he turns into what you want to see, and then also develop Anthony Black. It's very hard to do all of that while Paolo still takes his steps into all-stardom, and then Franz is going to get a shooting back. It's not a perfect world. We got to brace for something. But there's some moves that can still, the draft capital is there. I don't want to speak anything too crazy, but I see something where if you gradually take it slow, the Magic are going to, before you know it. So that's just my thing. And we've seen a lot of teams try to rush the process. It doesn't always work. So how many teams have we seen do that? We've seen the Clippers. They just ended an era where they had Kawhi Leonard and Paul George for several years and didn't come close to a championship. Then they added James Harden. The Brooklyn Nets had Kyrie Irving, Kevin Durant, James Harden. We can talk about all the reasons why or how close, foot on the line, vaccine with Kyrie. They didn't win it. Like, I like when teams draft their talent, let the talent develop. They get a little taste of the playoffs, get a little taste of success, and you gradually grow and grow and grow like the Boston Celtics. And as you get your young stars to mesh and grow together, then you can go get a Drew Holiday and you can add a Porzingis and the stars will align, and then you win a championship.
The other thing that we try to remind people of is, like, young teams just don't win championships. Like, you go through the history of the league, you look at all the all-time greats, like, you just don't win it unless you're Tim Duncan, right? I mean, but you still had David Robinson. Like, young teams just don't win it their first go around typically. Or if it takes them a while to get there, then yeah, maybe eventually. But you don't see your best player being, 23, 24 years old winning a championship. Like, this isn't the the Magic Johnson Los Angeles Lakers
Yeah.
NBA anymore. Like, the league is just so different. And I do want to pivot to the offseason, and not to pick on KB, but one of your guys' recent episodes where you talked about Eastern Conference teams and things that you liked and hate about teams going into this season. Kenny talked about how the Magic had all the cap space but didn't really make the move. And to his point, he said, he's sort of being nitpicking. They did have the quote unquote conversation with Paul George. I don't really know how much of a conversation that actually was. But talking about the offseason moves that the Magic made, signing Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, extending Franz Wagner to the max rookie extension, brought back Gary Harris, letting Markelle Fultz walk. Those are some of the major moves that they made. In my opinion, and amongst Magic fans, maybe it was a little bit of copium, missing out on Paul George, missing out on a guy like Klay Thompson. It just seems like the Magic have accumulated the contracts that they need in order to make the next move. Like you were talking about, Anthony Black, Jet Howard, Tristan Da Silva, Cole Anthony. There are so many pieces on this team that we're not quite sure exactly how they fit yet. But what were your thoughts on the moves that the Magic made this offseason and sort of what their approach was?
Oh yeah, I may have said something when KB said it, but I kind of felt the opposite. I think they did exactly what they needed to do. I'm not a fan of when teams have the money and they just spend it just because. What I like is like when the Rockets had that and they just like, hey, Fred, we're just gonna give you a bunch of money instead of like bringing in 5 extra guys. It's like we have our 2 that we really like and we really see making an impact in our culture and fitting with our players. We're just going to pay them. That's how I like to see it. They gave Kentavious Caldwell-Pope some really good money for him because I think he really fits what you guys are trying to do. I agree with you. If there was a conversation with Paul George, I'm one of the biggest Paul George fans. I never seen him, being a Magic. Even though as a fan, I kind of flirted with the idea, like, man, that would be dope seeing PG with the youngins. But we know Paul George wasn't leaving his home of LA to go to a young Magic team. Just too good to buy the hype into when you have Joel Embiid and Tyrese Maxey over there. So I like the offseason. I'm a big fan of Gary Harris. For a long time I was trying to see what was going on with Markelle. You kind of had to see that coming because it is Suggs, Cole, and now AB. And then Tristan Da Silva has been one of my favorite college players and a sleeper for me for a very long time. And the fact that you guys are able to get him at what was that, 16, 17, 19? Was an amazing pickup for me. So
I think it was 16, 18, somewhere in there.
Yeah, I
don't have to worry about our draft position moving forward. But we got TDS. We're happy with him.
Yeah, and when we interviewed him, great guy. You know what I mean? Very good guy. Head on straight, focused. Doesn't seem like he's with a lot of BS. Seems like he's going to be a pro's pro. So yeah, man, I'm a big fan of the offseason that y'all had. You did bring in another veteran, in Corey Joseph. I forgot. And somebody that when I pulled up this roster that I didn't realize y'all picked up, Jarrett Culver. That must have went over my head. I don't know if he's officially on the roster. You know how this goes. You get a camp invite.
Like an Exhibit 10 guy. Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, that was interesting to see. But overall, even when the season ended, I didn't go into the offseason like, man, the Magic need to add 4 more pieces. That wasn't really my mindset. So I was just happy y'all walked away with something. It would have been disappointing if y'all did come with the same exact roster because y'all missed out on Paul George and Klay and you missed out on KCP. Then we would be here having a different conversation. But you left with something, and that something was, I think, the perfect route for y'all. Because there was a while I'm like, man, maybe KCP goes to the Philadelphia 76ers too. But he ended up going to y'all. So y'all got a really good offseason for me. Also gave Jonathan Isaac his money.
Yeah, that boy got paid, got renegotiated, and keep him on the books for a little bit longer. But then, like, you just look at all the pieces that we have. We feel pretty good about Franz, Paolo, Jaylen Suggs. I think, I would, if I had to bet, I would say the extension gets done before the season starts, but you just don't really know. They may be, saying, all right, you did it last year, you were healthy, let's see you do it again. And then, of course, you'll get your bag. We feel pretty good about Jalen Suggs being like a long-term piece of the core. Outside of that, it's kind of up in the air with Wendell, Cole, Gary, a lot of the guys that we mentioned. And it does feel like within the next year or so, the Magic do need to consolidate some of their pieces and make like the next move. Like if Jalen, KCP, Franz, and Paolo are all going to be, core pieces for the next few years, you still have to add around those guys if you're going to end up contending, and those guys also have to continue to progress in their own right. I wanted to talk to you about a conversation that I've seen you have a couple of times on social media this offseason around Paolo Banchero. I want to ask you, like, where are you with Paolo, just, off to the side by yourself? And then what do you think, like, the public perception of Paolo is? Do you think he's underrated, overrated, or properly rated at this point?
Well, for me, I think Paolo is one of the emerging stars in our league and in our game, personally. I just think that when you add context to everything, you can't really deny it. Anybody who's saying otherwise is going out of their way to really say it, and they're really nitpicking. See, the difference between me and a lot of people that you see on Twitter or whatever, a lot of the stuff don't really hold weight to me that holds weight to them, because context is everything. I watch basketball.
Watching the games matters.
Yeah, I've watched basketball my entire life. A lot of guys on Twitter, what they're doing is they're going to Dunks and Threes, they're going to B-Ball Index, they're going to Basketball Reference, and they're not watching games. You can't talk to me about efficiency. Efficiency is an important thing, and it has its place. And like I said on our podcast on a recent episode, anybody in the world who plays basketball, whether you're amateur, whether you're pro, whether you're a child, it doesn't matter what it is. If I give you 10 shots, everybody in the world wants to make as many as they can out of those 10. That's just the name of the game. But there are certain players who have certain roles where I think it's the opposite. See, a lot of people think players are selfish because of the shots they take. I think it's the other way. I think you have to have a certain courage and have a certain confidence within yourself to be that guy for your team. Because if you have a guy who is that special of a scorer, who cares about efficiency and is now passing up shots or not being as aggressive and putting his teammate who is not that talented in a certain position, you're being unfair to your teammate. So I use the example of like Kobe. A lot of people always talk about Kobe's efficiency. When you look at some of those teams, what was he supposed to do? Give the ball to Smush Parker? That would have been unfair to Smush. No disrespect, but Smush wasn't ready for that type of role. It's the same thing with the Magic. I want Paolo to take low percentage shots throughout the certain stretches of games because he's that talented. That's a much better shot, believe it or not, than somebody else going and creating their own shot. There's certain guys that just have the ability to make tough shots because of the size, because of the talent, because of the skill, versus others. We don't want to see KCP with the ball 5 seconds on the shot clock trying to create something off the dribble. We would much rather see Paolo take a tough, contested mid-range shot. And is it the most efficient shot in the world? No, it's not. But it's going to be better than some of the other options that you have. And I think that type of context kind of gets lost. And to answer your question about overrated, underrated, I really think it's dependent on who you talk to. See, I talk to certain people in our community, and I feel like he's properly rated. I've talked to other people, probably from the Orlando Magic community. They may kind of overrate him a little bit. Rightfully so. That's their guy.
He's a GOAT.
He's a GOAT. Exactly.
Yeah.
And then you'll talk to somebody else who's super stat nerdy, and they don't see the hype. And then that's where it's like, oh, yeah, he's underrated. He's beyond underrated then. Because I just feel like anybody who's had a rookie year that he had and came back with the year 2 and not only went that way, dog, Paolo Banchero was the first option as a rookie, number 1. I don't want to disrespect anybody else in Orlando Magic, but he's a number 1 with a supporting cast that can be challenging, to say the least. Year 2, again, the rest of the league now understands who Paolo is. Even after his rookie slump or whatever he pushed through, the league is on notice. He not only responds, but he's an all-star. They make it to the playoffs. There was a point in the season where they were the 2nd seed. I remember because Magic fans wouldn't let me live, right? They dip a little bit, maintain, right? 5th seed, right? Is that where you got a 5th seed?
Yeah.
Go against the Cleveland Cavaliers, take them 7 games. And Paolo Banchero came to play every single game. It was a certain point where the Cavs said, hey, we're going to gap you up like this is middle school basketball. Middle school basketball is like one good player on each team, and the defense is just gap up, and you just dare everybody else to shoot on a team. Guys can barely get the ball to the 3-point from the 3-point line. And that's how they played the Magic, and he still answered the call. Nobody else can make perimeter shots. He was making perimeter shots. And again, I know it hurts for Magic fans to hear y'all are half away from going to the 2nd round on the back of a 2nd-year player. How often have we heard? You see a guy like Chet, he's going to play with Shea. You don't have to worry about carrying a team. You know what I mean? So it's like Who is the most recent guy that we've seen do this? Is Cade Cunningham taking the team? Is he taking the Pistons to the second round? Now, I love Cade. I think Cade could be just as good as Paolo. We haven't seen it. Has Zion done it yet?
Close.
Anthony Edwards. That's the best one.
He's one of the best up and coming players, and he's arguably one of the best players in the league already.
And look how they talk about him.
Yeah.
So it's like, I don't know. If my team had a chance to draft Paolo Banchero, I'm not saying no. That's all I'm saying. And if anybody who is going against anything we're saying up here, if they can look me in my face and tell me that they would tell their team to not draft Paolo Banchero, then I'll just stop talking to them.
Can't talk basketball with everybody.
You can't. But yeah, the conversations was pissing me off because I'm a big Paolo Banchero fan, and I think there's room in the game for guys like him. You know what I mean? I just think that the internet and stat nerds, who I have no problem with, I enjoy stats and I use them when I need to. But there's always going to be a room for the Carmelo Anthony type player. I don't care how much you dislike the way the game is or you dislike the shots. There's a reason NBA teams are paying these guys. Go look at how Carmelo Anthony's career earnings. Talk to me in 10 years and we'll talk about Paolo Banchero's career earnings. These chuckers, inefficient chuckers, these are the guys getting all the max money. Go look at how much Tracy McGrady, another Magic, earned. There's a reason franchises in the history of basketball have emptied their bank accounts for this prototypical type of player. You can't make it up, man. You cannot make it up. It's not me. It's just the facts.
Pee-wee the preacher has come to play tonight. No, the thing with me with Paolo, and we talked about this on the last episode actually, is this idea that he's as good as he's going to be. And the dude isn't even 22 years old yet. And he's not in the proper basketball context to optimize his skill set yet. And this idea that this guy's 22 years old, or not even 22 years old, but this is as good as it's going to get for him. He's hit his ceiling. To me, that's the most ridiculous part of all of it.
Yeah.
And I understand like the mellow, like, sort of the body type and the play style is similar, but, and this is not to take anything away from Carmelo Anthony, because I think to your point, again, it's like, well, was Kobe going to give the ball to Smush Parker? I think Paolo Banchero in terms of a playmaker is probably a step ahead of Carmelo Anthony. And because of the culture I think that the Magic have put in place, I think he competes a little bit more on the defensive end than Carmelo did at times. So I'm not saying he's going to be better than Carmelo, but I like when people are like, oh, he's just going to be a chucker like Carmelo. I think it's different context. I do think they're similar players, but I do think there are their fair share of differences. What do you think about that?
No, I think you hit that on the head. That was one of the best things that I think can get talked about when Paolo was coming out of college from Duke. I don't think that a lot of people emphasize the playmaking and what he could be defensively. And the fact that he was able to show it, and Jamal Mosley was able to create a foundation that everybody, even if you're not going to be a wing stopper, there's a certain level of intensity and attention to detail that you're going to pay attention to on the defensive side of the floor. And in return, it looks like it's times where he lets them rock out. You know what I mean? If you do what you're supposed to do on defense, I'll give y'all, some bit of leeway on offense where y'all guys can rock out. There are certain shots that I've seen Franz Wagner take, and I was like, oh, okay. Certain shots that I've seen Paolo take, I'm like, fade away over two guys. Okay. Jalen Suggs, when he cooked the Warriors, he was able to play freely and get in his bag. And I think that's where a lot of young players want to be, where it's like, hey, I'm going to do what I can for you right here on this end of the floor, but, let me rock out sometimes, because these guys, they put in hundreds of hours, thousands of hours, each offseason to get better, not to just go sit in the corner, you know what I mean? Or not to just stand on the elbow. So I do think Paolo does, at this point of his career early on, is definitely ahead of Melo with the playmaking. And I think that's good for him, because as good of a scorer he is, it's tough to project you to be a better scorer than Carmelo. So he should be playmaking a little bit more and buying into the defensive side. And that's what the game is for. Paolo Banchero, if he had, I don't know who was around him, but if I was around him, I would say, hey, they're kind of projecting you to be like Melo a little bit. So let's look at what made Melo fall short a little bit in certain areas. Okay, playmaking, defense, and these different type of things. And let's learn from that. that's what you have a guy like Carmelo for. We can learn from their mistakes. You know, Donovan Mitchell and Anthony Edwards, they get to learn from D Wade and Kobe's. So Paolo has somebody, you know, in front of him who can, you know, say, hey, maybe not directly. I don't know if Carmelo is directly talking to Paolo, but it's just, again, if I'm guessing, you know, the people around Paolo, I've kind of heard and seen that Paolo comes from like a basketball background, so I think he probably have people, you know, having those conversations with him.
And I don't mean to crap over Melo a ton here. Like, I think when he was engaged defensively, he was really good. But I think Paolo doesn't get enough. Not that he's, like you said, he's not a wing stopper. He's not this like perimeter ball hawk or anything like that. But I don't think he gets enough credit on that end. You mentioned Jalen Suggs a moment ago, and you just keep lobbing me the transitions here. I really appreciate that. I wanted to ask you what you thought of Jalen Suggs' improvement this past year. Obviously, you know, makes an all-defensive team. The three-point shooting really came around. Like you mentioned earlier, they're going to be putting the ball in his hands a lot more this offseason or going into this season. I know he's been working on that this offseason. But what do you think his ceiling is?
Oh, that's a good question. First and foremost, this is the most excited I've been for Jalen Suggs, other than his rookie year, because when Jalen Suggs was coming into the NBA out of the draft, my assessment on him was he was a really good player. He was going to be steady. I thought he was fearless going to the basket. I thought his jump shot was makeable. And I thought he was able to push the tempo and he was going to defend. He was a very good, well-rounded point guard. But the main thing that I was saying in a lot of those conversations was I think his game elevates with his team. So he was a guy that I wouldn't have drafted if I was the Pistons and I didn't have anything to support him. So I'm really excited because this is going into that point now. You have Paolo in year 3. You have Franz, who's paid now. You have Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. You guys have a really good mixture of centers, no matter whoever's hot at the time. But Wendell is obviously probably going to be the starting center. Or is it going to be Jonathan Isaac? Because y'all was doing that a little bit in the playoff. I don't really know.
I really don't know. I'm interested to see that in training camp.
Okay. But I think this is the best version of the Magic going into a season that we've seen since Suggs has been there. So I'm extremely excited to see if that assessment is going to reflect in this year for him, which I think is a really good and important year. And I think that he can have a, how do I put it? He's going to be he could be like a Marcus Smart. I think it could be a Marcus Smart type of player. Marcus Smart was really good on those Celtics teams because they had really good talent around him and he was able to focus in on defense. And there were certain times where they didn't feel like Marcus Smart was a point guard. But then there was also a time where it was like, we're going to empower Marcus Smart. We're going to let him be the point guard. And Marcus Smart did really well. You know what I mean? Like, I really wish Marcus Smart could have won a championship with the Celtics. He was the heart and soul. I really think Jalen Suggs can be that for this team. And there is a world where he's a bit of a better point guard than Marcus Smart on top of that. There is also a world where he doesn't do what a lot of us is projecting as the full-blown point guard. And I think that's still okay because what he gives you defensively is like the most refreshing thing to see. I was so happy for Jalen Suggs because the first couple of years it was really tough. And then that first year, Franz kind of had a rock star rookie year while he didn't have a good one. And you always feel for a player like that because he's a good dude from what I see. And
he's a great guy.
When he was able to carve out an identity, I was like, there you go, Suggs. Like, just you want somebody to stick. Basketball is a tough sport. So I really was happy to see him kind of have the identity and have the fans behind him because that means everything for an organization. So if they ever get to the point where they got to shop him or they think about it, they're going to have to answer those fans. Fans are going to riot for Jalen Suggs. So I was just happy to see him carve out that identity because now that gives you something to stick on. I get real scared for young players when they don't have an identity to stick on because you can blink and they'll be out of the league. That like the league is going. So when he got the identity, I was like, okay, he'll have something to fall back on for the rest of his career. If the jump shot declines, if he keeps turning the ball over and doesn't look like he's going to be able to run an offense, he's going to have defense. It was just, Caruso. If all at the worst, you just relay your hat on that. So I was just very, very happy for that. But knowing who he is prior to the NBA, seeing what he did last year, gives me the confidence that there's something there where we can get some Marcus Smart type-ish stuff going on.
And we interrupt our conversation with PeeWeeDaPlug to give you a word from our friends over at Jam Hot Chicken. They are proudly serving the city beautiful. Jam Hot Chicken is bringing jams, culture, and hot chicken to the heart of Winter Park, Florida. Jam Hot Chicken is a Nashville and LA-inspired hot chicken shack, locally owned and operated in Winter Park, Florida, over there at 400 West New England Avenue, Suite 13 in Hannibal Square. I want to give a quick shout out to No Shade on YouTube, who just did a great video on Jam Hot Chicken, getting to know my friend Andrew Scala, the owner, going through the entire story of how he started Jam Hot Chicken and basically their entire mission and culture over there. So I would urge you to go to YouTube, search No Shade, and look up their video that they did about Jam Hot Chicken. Really just encapsulates everything that I love about Jam Hot. Obviously, the food is incredible. The representation of the food and just like the visuals, the way that they put it all together looks amazing. But you get to really hear about like the heart behind what Andrew is doing over there. He's not just trying to do food. He's trying to make it an experience and trying to make it the best experience possible every single time. Talked about this on the last pod, but people think that I'm overhyping Jam. I really don't believe I am. It is just as good as we say it is. If you're a fan of chicken, if you're a fan especially of Nashville and LA inspired hot chicken, please go ahead and check them out. You can find them at Jam Hot Chicken on all social media, and head over to jamhotchickenfl.com to access the menu, online ordering, music playlist, and all things Jam Hot. And again, now you can find them on Uber Eats. So if you don't want to leave the house, you want to get Jam Hot Chicken delivered to your house, you can do that. Big shout out to our friends over at Jam Hot Chicken, and a big shout out to Tom Gadsden, Magic Kid 714, Goody 93, Bruv Sal, and Austin Lampy. Who are these folks? You might be asking. These are some of our elite and Hall of Fame tier patrons, folks that financially support the Six Man Show to help us do everything that we're doing. We talked about the mission with Jam Hot Chicken. The Six Man Show has a vision, and it's all about growing an Orlando Magic fan community where people can come and join and just enjoy their common love of the Orlando Magic, of this city, and just have other Orlando Magic fans that they can cheer on this team with and experience the highs, the lows, all that kind of good stuff. So if you would like to join our mission and help financially support the show so that we can keep doing and keep growing and keep expanding and do even better things that we're doing now, please head on over to patreon.com/the Six Man Show. We have different tiers that you can select from, but every dollar really does make a difference. Again, a big shout out to all of our Hall of Fame elite tier patrons, all of our patrons. Find us at patreon.com/the Six Man Show. And now let's get back to my conversation with PeeWeeDaPlug. Yeah, I think I'm comfortable saying his floor is like in the neighborhood of Marcus Smart. I'm not saying his floor is Marcus Smart or is better than Marcus Smart. It might be just below Marcus Smart if like the shooting doesn't really stick and the playmaking doesn't come around. But the thing that I've always seen with Jaylen, even early in his career, the first year or so, is he's always been able to get to his spots. Wherever he wants to go on the floor, he can get there. It's just about being able to finish and execute and not turn the ball over once he gets there. It felt like a lot of times last year in the early start of the season when we were winning, 9 games in a row, the offense got off to its best starts when Jaylen was like ultra aggressive in the half court and getting to the rim because it opened up the floor for Paolo and Franz and these other guys. So I'm really excited and interested to see if Jaylen can take that next step, because if Jaylen is able to take that next step, one, it answers a lot of questions potentially around a guy like Anthony Black or Cole Anthony and would really solidify Jaylen as part of that core. But it's just going to be great to see how he follows up on the improvement that he made last year. Next, I want to ask you just about like defensive personnel around the league and sort of where do the Magic rank in your eyes? So just to name some of the guys that we have: Jalen Suggs, Jonathan Isaac, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, Franz Wagner, who, in my opinion, doesn't get enough love for what he does defensively, Anthony Black, Wendell Carter Jr., Gary Harris. I've just listed 7, 8 guys there. Where do you think the Magic personnel-wise rank amongst the league's best?
Y'all got some guys for sure. I'm pulling up. Y'all was second in defense last year. I think y'all can be in the discussion of like top 6, top 5 from a personnel standpoint. Obviously, we're just talking personnel. You got to be able to put it together on the floor. I have confidence that y'all will be able to do that. I didn't even realize that y'all finished that high. I don't know why I thought y'all were like 4th or 5th. 2 is incredible. It's just that I hate to talk about my team. It was a cheat code letting us get Mikal Bridges. When you
For
start
real.
talking about
Yeah.
OG and Mikal,
Fair enough.
that's dangerous. The Boston Celtics with Drew Holiday and Derek White, Tatum Brown, the switchability there, dangerous. The Cleveland Cavaliers, Evan Mobley, Jared Allen, Donovan Mitchell, they've always been able to find a way to defend. Even Darius Garland, I feel the same way kind of about him, the way you said, Franz. So there's a lot of teams that really took a step defensively, and those are just Eastern Conference teams that I named off the top of my head. So I would say around the top 5, top 6 area. But there's also a world, because y'all are so young in comparison to those other teams, where there's untapped potential. I project Anthony Black to be a really good defender. So it's like, that's another, I don't know if you named him, but that could be another name. You know what I mean?
I threw him in there. We've
Okay.
seen enough flashes, and like just the size, like he's basically like a 6'7" guard. Like, you know, he's been able to switch on to some wings, and obviously is a pest defensively. That's a guy that I'm hoping gets more of an opportunity this year, because at times this past year, like if Gary Harris was missing some time, like you're just able to plug Anthony Black into the lineup. You're not exactly sure what you're always going to get from him offensively. It was kind of like, hey, go hang out in the corner, and if you happen to be open, we're going to throw it to you. And I mean, on relatively low volume, he shot pretty well. But I mean, I would be absolutely shocked if the Magic finish anywhere below 5th this year.
Yeah, that's where I would put it. We've seen the Bucks, their struggles. I'm just looking around. Minnesota's going to be good again. That's a Western Conference team. I think Oklahoma City could be good again. And outside of that, that's it, right?
I
The
think
Rockets.
part of it is like some of those other teams know on a night in and night out basis that even if they're not at absolute 100%, you know, going crazy all out defensively, they're going to have enough offense most nights to make up for it. The Magic go into every single game knowing that if we don't have this, we probably don't have a chance to win. So I think just like that give a damn factor goes a long way with them, because they just know that, hey, if we're not competing on this end every single night, we're just not going to be in a handful of games.
No, that is true, because Timberwolves are going to have Anthony Edwards, Karl Town.
Yeah.
OKC is going to have Shea. So yeah, you definitely have that. But yeah, like just from a personnel standpoint, I'm just looking around the league. I'm liking the Celtics. I'm liking the Knicks. Like as clear cut teams. And you can make your argument over who you would take personnel wise. I mean, the Cavaliers have been a really good defense, but from a personnel standpoint, there's more that the Magic is offering, especially with the Jonathan Isaac and Jalen Suggs tandem. You know what I mean? But then you have the Timberwolves. So yeah, top 5 definitely, because the Timberwolves, you still have Rudy, Jaden McDaniels, Mike Conley is steady, and Anthony Edwards is going to give you the I'm sorry, energy there. The Grizzlies are a team that we just don't know what they are.
Right.
Jaren Jackson, Marcus Smart. That's a nice little tandem defensively. They have Vince Williams off that bench. Zach Edey, what do we get from him? Desmond Bane. It's going to be nice to see them. Victor Wembanyama, year 2 defensively. So, but yeah, top 5 for sure. Anything less than top 5 is a just disappointing defensive season, unless there's some injury we don't know about.
All right, last Magic question that I have for you. In a vacuum, I don't want to talk about injuries, you know, because we just saw the Pacers, you know, because of injuries, they were able to make it all the way to the Eastern Conference Finals. In a vacuum, what do you think Orlando's ceiling is this year?
I would project the Magic to be relatively around the same area they was last year as far as win totals. I think 47 to 50 is a good range for them. And again, it's just because the rest of the East, not the rest of the East, but a lot of teams in the East got significantly better. But I think I think they should be comfortably into the playoffs. I don't think the Magic should be a play-in team. That would be kind of borderline disappointing to me. But you have this tier where it's like the Knicks, the Celtics, no order, 76ers, and the Bucks. That's a clear-cut top 4 in whatever order you want. And then that next line is like Pacers, Magic, Cavs. And I would hope that the Magic would be able to be a team that stays in float above their play-in spot. I would project that they would probably be 6 for me, the Magic. And
I
that's
love that you didn't put the Heat in that tier, by the way. That just makes me so happy.
oh damn, I did kind of forget about
No,
the
you
Heat.
didn't forget. No, it's not that you didn't
Sheesh.
forget them. The Heat
The
don't
Heat are
go in that.
just
They're
yeah. I
not in
mean,
that bracket
I did
anymore.
forget them, but now that you even mentioned them, I don't really change anything. But it is like it's a lot going on out east. But the Heat, I just don't know what I'm gonna get from them. They don't take the regular season serious. They didn't do anything in the offseason. But the Magic, I'll take those top 4 teams that I said, and then I out of those next 3, Pacers, Magic, Cavs, I'm feel the most confident. Don't shoot me, Magic fans,
No, you're
in the
good.
Cavs, because the Cavs won 48 games last year with all of those injuries. They almost won as many games as they did the year before. So now coming in healthy, I think the Cavs are going to be scary good. And then I would have the Magic at 6. And then I think the Magic could set themselves up to have another tough fight in the first round. It just depends on who you get matched up with, because those top 4 teams are very scary, man. You get matched up with Greek Freak, the Magic can muddy that game. They can muddy that series up.
Absolutely.
They can muddy that series up. You get matched up with Boston, Orlando, you packing your bags real fast. I'm sorry. You pack your bags real fast. The Knicks is going to be tough because OG Anunoby, Mikal, I just don't know who wants to see that. That's just a nasty duo right there. But I think it's going to be another really good year, man. If I was a Magic fan, there would be nothing that could go. I don't want to say nothing that could go wrong, but there would be nothing that like I would be going into this year as stress-free as ever. There's never going to be a year like this for Magic fans, because if you underachieve significantly next year, that means that next year you're going to have extreme stress because you're going to have to really play above and beyond. If you're good, the expectations grow. This is the year where you guys are able to go in here stress-free. You can count on being a playoff team, like you said, and before we started recording. Life is a little different because work usually ends a certain round of the season. Now we're getting playoffs, so work is kind of extending into the summer. This is a great year. I felt like this a couple years ago at the Knicks, where it's like, we're a good team, we're a solid team, we're gonna make the playoffs. I ain't got no stress. Now we were the 2nd seed. We had a Mikal Bridges. The expectations is like, whew, we got to do something now, man. I kind of miss when it was like Julius Randle and Jalen Brunson that first year, and we kind of caught people by surprise, and it was nice and cool. And if we lost in the first round or the second round, it wasn't that big of a deal. But now it's like, man, the Knicks don't win 50 plus games, and Knicks don't make conference finals. Gonna be some conversations. Enjoy it, Magic fan. Enjoy it.
I got to be honest, for a lot of us, that year was last year, right? Like going in with no expectations, and then they like grossly overachieve even the most optimistic Magic fans' expectations. Some people are like, oh, if we don't make the second round, the season's a failure. And for me, if you end up in the play-in, that's an incredibly disappointing regular season. If you're able to then figure it out and have a really competitive first round, it's like, okay, there are still some positives that you can take away from that. But if you go into the first round playoff series, I don't care who it is. I don't care if you end up in the 9-10 play-in game and then you become the 8th seed and you match up with Boston. Like, I don't care who it is. If you don't have a very competitive first round, to me, that's going to be pretty disappointing. But I kind of like the fact that Magic fans have more expectations, right? Because like a lot of fans, I feel like, have gotten so used to losing that they forgot what winning looks like.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we got to the end of last season and we were the 2nd seed in the East, and we had like a Tuesday or a Wednesday night matchup against the Charlotte Hornets, and we lost. And I was acting like the building was burning down, and everybody's like, no, this is totally fine. And then it came to game 82 against the Milwaukee Bucks, where we had to win that game to stay out of the play-in. And I said, this is why you take care of your business a couple of weeks ago against Charlotte, against Houston, because then we don't have to worry about this. But like the opening night, I want those boys to be playing like it's game 82. Like I want these guys to come out of the gate ready to go. Like I want the expectations. Like I welcome the expectations. I want that stress back in my life. I need that. So I'm looking forward to that.
So you said the first round is just, it better be competitive. But what if it's a world where that team that you're playing is just significantly better than you?
outside of Boston and New York, I don't see that being realistic and that being an excuse. And to the Magic's credit, right? Like maybe it's like a Lakers Denver Nuggets matchup from a couple of seasons ago where it's like the closest sweep of all time.
Okay.
Like that's one thing. But if you're going in and you're getting your doors blown off 15 points a game and you get swept, to me, that's not acceptable. Like a guy that is as talented as Paolo Banchero, and like he's one of those guys. Like I don't know how to quantify it, but to me, Paolo has it. Mm-hmm. I don't see him going down in a series like that.
Yeah.
There may be things that you can do to scheme for that. And if other guys aren't knocking down shots, then we have to have conversations about those guys. But if guys are giving you even average nights, Paolo Banchero should be good enough to get you a couple of games in a series against almost anybody.
I think last year kind of quantified the it factor. He was kind of going sometimes kind of by himself, carrying the Magic through some tough shooting stretches to keep them into games, what it looked like at first, but he kept them into the series and gave them actually a chance to win.
Nobody outside of Magic fans. I mean, we'll get some people that are Pee-wee fans that are going to tap into this because of you, and I very much appreciate that. But for the most part, Magic fans know this. Go back and watch Game 5 last year in Cleveland. Nobody was getting it done. Paolo was getting it done. Even if it wasn't not for an incredible Evan Mobley block on Franz at the rim, the Magic are coming back to Orlando to close out that series. But like that game to me, if there was any doubt in my mind, which there wasn't, but if there were, before that game, you just go back and watch that game from Paolo Banchero, and it's like, this guy is going to be one of the stars of this league. There's not a doubt in my mind.
No doubt.
Is that my Magic bias? Probably. I'm okay with that.
I'm not a Magic fan, and I agree with you.
I appreciate that.
There's no doubt in my mind.
I appreciate that.
Every decade what I say every day? No, not every decade, because the last decade there wasn't one. But almost every decade, I've had me a Magic guy, right? You got Penny in the 90s, T-Mac in the 2000s. There was nobody in the 2010s. Now in the 2020s, I got my Paolo Banchero. So Magic fans, I'm not a Magic fan, and I'm a Knick fan. So we'll see each other a little bit. But I always found one of those guys to fall in love with y'all team. So Paolo is my guy, man. I love his game. I'm rocking with it. I am a Paolo Banchero defender.
For anybody that doesn't know, just real quick, Game 5, 39 points, 8 rebounds, 4 assists, 14 of 24 from the floor, 4 of 7 from behind the arc, 7 of 8 from the free throw line.
Those numbers are absurd, but what I would even say to anybody watching or listening, if you just go if you watch it, just give yourself 5 minutes to even just watch the type of shots, because, again, we talked about it, the stats are going to do one thing, and those stats sound magnificent, but to see the type of shots is even going to put more emphasis on it. You know what I mean? So
when you talked about, a turnaround over 2 guys, that was like that entire second half. It was ridiculous.
Like, okay, go ahead then. Go ahead.
I in my soul, I was like, this guy is going to just will us to win this game. And he came very close. Again, Evan Mobley makes a great play. But Pierre, I've had you long enough here. I want to now turn a little bit away from the Magic for the last couple of minutes here. Something that you and the boys have gotten into this past spring and summer, and something that I've taken up over the last year that a lot of our listeners know that I've become obsessed with is golf. Mm-hmm. I just want to talk to you guys, to you and see for you guys, how did that come about? Like, why did you get into golf? And like, I don't know if you've been like totally bit by the bug yet, but where are you with golf right now?
Well, for me, I would say I got into golf a couple years ago, but just the swag of it. I stumbled upon Malman Golf, the clothing brand, and then Eastside Golf, and so I was just like in the fashion of it, and I was like, "This is dope, this is fly," and that's like Malman Golf's whole thing is to kind of make golf fun. Is that where your
fuzzy bucket hat came from?
No. I can't tell you where that came from, but.
We're gatekeeping. Okay, I respect it. Yeah,
I seen somebody with one of my bucket hats, and
I wasn't talking about Malbon. I just meant like the golf swag. That's why you got into the bucket hat.
The bucket hats came from just being.
But I appreciate you gatekeeping. That's I like that.
Sometimes we got to
you have to. Yeah,
the bucket.
Some things you got to keep just for you.
Just for you. That's all. It's just a bucket hat. They ain't like nobody gonna go and start wearing bucket hats all of a sudden. But we were on tour, and I just needed something that's kind of make the tour fun and kind of give people something to look forward to and talk about. And I kept wearing bucket hats, and people were kind of like, what bucket hat is he going to wear next? Or is he going to keep this going? So that's where that came from. But yeah, I stumbled upon Malvin Golf, and I started watching his interviews and just getting a full rundown of the vision and everything behind it. And seeing him and his wife run it or whatever, and hearing a story about it, and just it's fly. And so it went from that to kind of like, oh man, maybe I should start golfing so I can have an excuse to really dive into this stuff and start wearing a bunch of it, because golf gear looks cool as is, but it looks even better when you're actually on a golf course golfing.
Yeah.
And then I went into Barnes and Noble, and I don't know if you can see, but next to the Kobe Mamba Mentality book, there's a green book right above my thumb. And from a distance, you can't really see. But if I go back, it's an actual, I don't know if you can see the material. It's like we're on a golf course. It's an actual golf book. So I started reading this golf book, kind of getting into golf. But this book took you to like the origins. It's like, I started getting bored with this. Like, bro, I don't need to know who invented golf. You don't need to go
back to Scotland. And
yeah, it was just kind of crazy. And then I subscribed to, what is the golf magazine called, man?
Golf Journal?
No, you're getting close. It's the other one. It's only like 5 that people really subscribe to.
Golf Digest.
Golf Digest. Boom. So then I got into Golf Digest. I started to learn a few players, and then I was just kind of casually watching here and there. I started buying the PGA Tour 2K games and was playing on there and everything, and I was having fun with it. And then I did that for like a year and a half, kind of on off. Not really, didn't really have the itch for it like that. And then Kenny started to get into golf. And that kind of gave me a reason and excuse to now actually do it. It's hard to do golf like solely by yourself. Yeah. And him getting into it, and Derek showing some interest, and we had another friend, Terrence, who golfs with us. That took it to a whole different level. We started going to the simulator, and then the simulator went from the real course. And then once we started to go, we just been having a lot of fun. We kind of eased down over the last few weeks. But we're gonna have to rev it up, because we don't have that many more weeks before, we done for out here in Chicago. But it's been fun, man. It's been really, really fun. I just enjoy, number one, I enjoy being outside. I feel like the older you get, the less you're outside, as much as when we were kids. I love having an excuse to hang out with my friends and get away from like the cell phone. Nobody's really on their phone when we golfing like that. And I love being in a competitive war with myself. And I will not be the golfer I want to be until I learn how to channel the competitive emotion in me. I'm getting better, but I'm so used to playing. I grew up playing baseball, and I grew up playing basketball, and I would play football for fun with friends. Those are all 3 sports that kind of, the more you can be, the better. Golf is the exact opposite. So I have to rewire my brain and my body and emotions to simmer down, because you have one bad shot, the emotional, eruption leads to now 3 bad shots. Where if I can get over that quickly with my emotions and just accept what happened, now that one shot, I can correct that with a next great shot. And, I've been going through that journey with myself, and I'm seeing improvement with it, but it's a lot easier said than done. But I do think that's the next step for me personally. And I just love having fun with it. I enjoy being bad at something and not caring as much. I feel like so much of my life I played sports where it was like, I must be better than him. You know what I mean? Like, I must outcompete you. I must score 30 and, I outscore you and win. But now it was kind of just something where, again, it was just like, can I have a shot better than the last one? Can this hole be better than the last one? Because there was times where, I kid you not, we start, I'm having a rock star start. I'm in the lead. And then the last 4 holes, you never know that I performed the way I did by the scorecard. And there's been times where I start off my first 4 holes and I'm like, I'm ready to go. I don't even want to be here no more. I'm getting, everything is annoying me. And then I'll have the last 2 holes are unimaginable. And I go home smiling. If you look at my scorecard, you'd be like, why is he smiling? You just played terrible. But it's like the last 2 holes has encouraged me to have a smile on my face, and I'm the best golfer in the world right now. And that's what I love about golf.
Yeah. No, I've gotten into it over the course of the last year, and I'll say that golfing by yourself, like if you're just trying to get better, can be fun, but there's nothing like being out on the course with your guys, especially like you said, just an area where nobody's on their phone, everybody's having a good time. You are competitive, like I'm trying to beat my friends, but more than anything, I'm competitive with myself. And every time I'm out there, I'm trying to get better. So that's where a lot of my frustration comes from, is that I've spent so much time and effort and money and hours and that sweat equity, especially here in Florida, into getting better. And the fact that I'm still terrible drives me crazy, because like I'm not the best athlete in the world, but growing up, I was relatively athletic in any sport that I spent a reasonable amount of time in. I would be better than your average guy. And with golf, for whatever reason, it really just is not that way. But I'm right there with you. Like the fashion aspect of it to me isn't as fun as going to play golf. But every night before a round, when I pick out what I'm gonna wear, it's like the night before the first day of school.
Yeah,
like I'm laying everything out. I'm on Malbin or bro, I don't know if you've looked at Tiger stuff on Sunday Red. I know the ESPN checks might be a little bit different for you. Maybe you should look at that stuff, because I cannot.
I know,
absolutely ridiculous.
Kenny was talking about it when it was coming out, but just because it had Tiger's name attached to it, I never really looked into it because I just felt like,
bro, $500 for a rain jacket.
Oh, it's like that. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm spending 500.
I'm not the clientele. Jacket. I'm not the clientele. Yeah, you might be. I am not.
No, even with the ESPN checks, there's just no.
Yeah.
There's a lot more I can do with $500.
Yeah. Well, look, man, I appreciate you taking the time. I'm not going to hold you up too much longer here, but you were talking about Jalen Suggs and the way that, the fans have gotten behind him. One day we're going to have to get you guys to Orlando for a big time game, so that you can see the way that Jalen Suggs like plays to the crowd. I'm sure you've seen it, but in real time, the atmosphere in Orlando and in Kia Center is changing around this young, exciting Magic team. And hopefully, if and when we get you guys down there, we'll have to get together for some golf, man. But P, I appreciate you taking the time. Let our listeners know exactly where they can find you, and they can find all the numbers on the board stuff.
Oh, first and foremost, thank you for having me. Would love to come down to Orlando. I still haven't been to Orlando at all, like just to vibe out.
You haven't had much reason to the last decade, so.
But Orlando has always been a place where like people go and just have a good time for vacation and enjoy weather. Right. I've only been Miami and South Beach. I've never went down to I don't know if it's down or up. Excuse me, I've never been up to Orlando. But now that the basketball team is good or whatever, we definitely got to make that happen. This is a question I have for you real quick. When I grew up, I remember I used to watch a lot of Magic games when they came on TV for Tracy McGrady, whether it was like an ESPN game or ABC. It wasn't too many back then because they weren't that good, but they would always come on TV because they played the Bulls a few times a year. The court was always like dark. It looks a little bit more brighter now in 2024, but is it dark in there?
It's a new building.
Oh, okay.
So the what you're referring to is what a lot of people will call the arena, or when I was growing up, it was the TD Waterhouse Center, and then it was eventually Amway Arena. They kablooied it. They demolished it, a number of years ago. So that building, unfortunately, is no longer there. Now it was the Amway Center. Now it's the Kia Center. Funny thing about the lighting, it's not dark in there, but they changed the lighting in there a few years ago, because I used to have to wear sunglasses at every game because due to like the blue hue of the lighting that they had in the building, I would get migraine headaches to the point where I would vomit the entire way home.
Damn.
It was that bad. So no, it's not dark in there, but they have changed the lighting over the course of the last couple of years, because I used to live 2 hours away from Amway, and my wife would drive me home and we would have to pull over multiple times because I would have to throw up. So I started wearing sunglasses to every Magic game. I looked like an idiot, but it was better than, throwing up all the time. So, but no, it's a completely different building now.
Oh yeah. So we definitely got to get that. See, that's how I rock with the Magic, but I'm still that much out of the loop that I didn't even know that they blew up the damn thing. But yeah. But find me on social media at PeeWeeDaPlug. I should be the only PeeWeeDaPlug in the world, honestly speaking. Numbers on the board. And yeah, that's just really what it is, man. Find me if you want to find me. I don't even think I'm trying to be searched for as much as I used to, because like we just talked about, Twitter is just such a crazy place to be these days. So whether it's sports, politics, random music takes, it's just a tough place to coexist. But if you do follow me, you will see some good basketball talk, and I'm never too big or too proud to engage in some good conversation on basketball with people who at least are open-minded. So yeah, man.
I appreciate it. P, I'm going to wrap this one up here for us. For those who listen to us on a regular basis, there will be no Monday episode because Monday is Media Day. We're going to record after Media Day and then release our episode on Tuesday, so be on the lookout for that. That is going to do it for this one. A big shout out to my man, PeeWeeDaPlug, for joining me here, Jonathan Osborne. This has been the Sixth Man Show. We will catch you guys next time. See ya.
Thanks for listening to the Sixth Man Show. Be sure to subscribe on iTunes and Spotify to get new episodes downloaded directly to your phone. If you enjoyed the show, please take a minute to give us a 5-star rating and a review. It helps out the show a lot. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at Sixth Man Show. We'll catch you guys next time. Go Magic!